Hi everyone, welcome to today's video where we have a national flag behind us. So that means we're going to talk about something Sri Lankan. But it's a special video because this video is going to be made public on 4th of February because it is our national day. And usually on national day of any country, people tend to talk about positive things about their countries, right? Well, I will be showing Sri Lanka in a positive light in another video, but this is not the video because I'm going to be talking about the negatives about living in Sri Lanka to balance things out. So without interrupting you all further, let me present to you two reasons as to why living in Sri Lanka kind of sucks. Now the reason why I actually included just two is because there's a lot to talk about with these two reasons. So I don't want this video to go too long. So let's begin with the first reason. Okay, so the first reason that I want to talk about is the cost of living and the economy, especially the cost of living. So Sri Lanka is the type of country in which the cost of living is great for anyone but a Sri Lankan. So according to World Population Review, Sri Lanka has the 5th cheapest cost of living in the entire world. Yeah, that's right, the entire world, with the monthly cost of living per person being around 428 US dollars. And another website says that number is 461 US dollars. So on average, you will be better off with if you have like a very low income by first world standards of a monthly salary of 1000, let's say, you'll be able to save a good chunk of that money on savings, because only a set small amount, as in not a huge chunk of your money, is going to go towards cost of living expenses. Now I wish this would be the case for Sri Lankans, but it isn't, because what's worse is that in Sri Lanka the average monthly salary for this year, or let's consider 2023, would be 90,100 rupees, which is only $281.60. And keep in mind, this usually depends on what job you do, but this is the usual range. And what's worse is that A, this is only enough to cover like half of the cost of living, supposedly cheap cost of living, and two, that's actually not even a income that you can keep to yourself entirely, because this is the before tax income. After tax income is 60,173 rupees and 8 cents. So that pretty much means that while the cost of living is very high for Sri Lankans, the salary is pretty much not enough for Sri Lankans to even maintain. So that is a huge problem. And even that, now let me show you how bad this cost of living is. So, and salary in particular is. So let's say that you make a monthly salary of 60,000. All you can afford is pretty much just a one bedroom apartment outside the city center. And even then, 59% of your income, close to 3/5 of your income, is going to be going towards rent. Imagine more than half of your income going towards rent, which is the case in a lot of low-income families all around the world. So it's not something that's particularly special in Sri Lanka. So you can tell that it's not really good, right? And also, in addition, there is a problem with the VAT, the value-added tax. It has increased to 18%, which means goods are going to get even more expensive for a lot of Sri Lankans. And the vast majority of Sri Lankans actually don't make a lot of money. Some people actually even make below the salary that I mentioned. So a lot of them are having a very hard time. So in that regard, let's just say that things are going to get even more expensive from now on, thanks to the increment of the VAT rate. Although one minister claimed that the cost of living might reduce by around the first quarter of this year. It's still too soon to tell whether this is going to be true, but we never know whether this is going to be true or not. And also, in terms of the economy, I would say that Sri Lanka's economy is not doing too bad, because if you take a look at certain statistics, there is some hope, because compared to 2022, Sri Lanka's economy is not that bad. Now, for example, tea has increased its production by 1.67%. IT is slowly improving, tourism is slowly improving as well, and a lot of industries that used to suffer are making small, somewhat noticeable recoveries. Of course, whether if this is going to transfer to the actual Sri Lankan public, we will never know. But so far as we all know, we can hope for a little bit of hope. but only time will tell whether if this hope can be shared among all Sri Lankans, not just a few. But so far the cost of living and more broadly the economy is one reason why living in Sri Lanka kind of sucks. Second reason I want to talk about are the social problems. Now every country in the world has certain social problems that they have to deal with. Sri Lanka is not an exception to this rule. However, I would like to go down around 6 social problems that are prevalent in Sri Lanka. So the first one is the aging population. Compared to South Asian countries, Sri Lanka actually has a very high aging population. Around 16% of Sri Lankans are 60 and above. This means 1 out of 6 Sri Lankans are 60 and above, which is a rate that is not really expected for a developing country, unless if it's like a country that has achieved quite a reasonable amount of growth in Sri Lanka. But here's the thing, we are basically a country that has a first world problem but with a third world economy, because we don't exactly have the most adequate resources to deal with this. And of course it is slightly improving, but we still have a long way to go. Another thing is that people who can actually work in this country are leaving the country because there's a lack of opportunity, and you can't blame them. There actually isn't that much opportunity for a lot of people in this country. I have friends who are saying that they are going to leave this country after they finish their education. So that's how bad things have gotten, even as of now. So this resulted in a pretty severe brain drain in the country as well. Another thing is that, let me just tell you something, the religious intolerance is actually more like a hit or miss, because sometimes you might face it, sometimes not. It really depends on whether you piss people off or not, because Sri Lanka is relatively a conservative country. So more than religious intolerance, I would say that the people's general conservative mindset is a big problem. If you can get past it, then that would be great. So people tend to think very conservatively, especially those in the rural areas, which is a majority of Sri Lankans, and especially the older generation. So and they take religion very, very seriously. So if you piss any kind of religious group in Sri Lanka, let's just say you're dead meat. And also another thing is that racism is kind of a problem as well. It's not as big as it used to be back in, when we had a civil war. But even after civil war, there's still a lot of racism related issues from time to time. And also when you consider that Sri Lanka has the fourth worst racial inequality in the entire world, that says a lot. And keep in mind, this is 2023 data, so I'm not taking off something that's like 7 or 8 years old data, that is. And also another thing is that corruption is really, really, really driving people insane, like a lot, because a lot of people actually don't trust the government. And when you consider the fact that Sri Lanka has a corruption score of 40, below the world average, that shows that is a little bit of a problem. Am I right? And another problem facing in Sri Lanka is the homelessness problem, because in this decade it's actually getting a bit more common to see a lot of homeless people in the street, and this is for a variety of reasons. I mean, obviously the cost of living has affected a lot of people, so many people have lost their homes, and you see a lot of beggars in the street. It is actually something that is very common, at least in this decade in Sri Lanka compared to the previous decades. And this is usually seen in a lot of big cities like Colombo, Galle, Kandy, especially in the city of Colombo. That's where it's very, very prevalent, because that is kind of like a lot of people actually kind of got affected with the economic crisis in Colombo, so it makes sense. So the homelessness problem is slightly increasing as well. And of course, it all depends on whether these problems are going to get fixed or not. So that pretty much concludes today's video of the social problems in Sri Lanka. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Happy Independence Day. And if you like this video, yeah, great, very good. But if you do have some constructively critical points, just please let me know in the comments, because I like to see what you all think. I know this probably is going to be a very controversial video, but this has to be said, and I try to be as objective as I can. If I'm still not very objective in this video, you can do what you need in the comments. And other than that, I will see you all in the next video with a slightly more positive video than this. So I will see you all in the next video. Bye.